Hello, everyone. On Tuesday, we introduced the structure models that focus on designing and building the database among the activity models. Also, we learned business rules needed to be attached to the models to ensure the activities and the data collected are valid, accurate, and complete. In particular, we continued to use the example of the cashier checkout process to discuss the differences between the activity models and the database, including the data and information. So overall, collectively, both models will construct the overall business modeling, including the different business rules. Moreover, we get on to the approach they call unified modeling language, which is a popular approach used in the real business world to help people design and implement their databases. So UML, we do have other database like modeling approach, but UML is a popular one. And under the UML, we have different components. Okay, you need to use the components in designing your database. We have classes. So the classes are the different entities we are trying to track, process, and record information. So those represent the various objects we covered in the process and activities. Then we need to identify the associations, like it means the transactions to trigger the change or update of your classes, especially how two classes are related to each other. So association or relations. Then the multiplicities indicate the minimum and maximum number of instances between the records of different classes. So for example, one customer can place minimum 0 order, right, and maximum unlimited orders in a specific time period. Because these elements will ensure the database will capture all of the information we need to store, process, and record, and that's kind of will generate the necessary information for decision making and the different type of analysis. Let's get into some details of the elements in today's lecture. First, let's take a look for the classes. In the UML, in the UML approach, they call the entities classes. But in the ER modeling system, they directly call entities. So classes or entities are two different words, but they basically represent the same thing we are looking for. Like, what are your interests you want to record and process, what type of data we want to record and process in the system. So it can be a variety of interested objects. So it can be your organizational resources, so such as your physical assets, like those are normally our like the assets in the balance sheet, right? So like tracked by accountants and other assets management. The classes can be all can also be the persons involved, external persons or internal employees, customers, vendors, or even maybe like the IRS, right? So we are dealing with can be the external persons, and then we have employees and other internal stakeholders. The classes can also be like actions, like events. So sales orders, like, the sales order will capture your sales information, right? So like the sales, we couldn't really capture the action, but we can capture the document created by the action. So sales orders or purchase orders, cash disbursement, cash receipt. Okay, so the transactions or events. Then abstract structures, accounts, product categories, budgets. For example, if you're looking for a retail store, we have goods like groceries, we have stationaries, clothings like shoes, home goods, right? So those are not related to a specific product, but is the aggregation name or aggregation type. We try to organize the products. For the accounts, like we have asset accounts, we have liability accounts, revenue accounts, and expenses accounts, okay, to help us summarize the detailed items. And in both of the UML approach or the entity relationship approach, we normally use the table formats like the worksheets we used in Excel, but in general we call tables because in other like Math or Office products, they also can create tables. And in Access, Microsoft Access, the database tool, they specially call tables as well. So you just imagine or understand the classes are entities are the data we are trying to capture and record in a table format. So we have the rows and columns. Each row will be a unique record. So we have, like, for example, we have 10 different customers. And then for each customer, we have different fields or attributes to profile this customer. So we have their ID, we have their name, address, contact information, and other related fields, so tables. And here we have an example for a bank account. So bank account can be a resource, right? So can be a company's resource. And for us to define this, the class, so like you need to name it. So you can say just like maybe Bank of America account or Chase account, or you need to have a bank name. And then like the attributes, right? So the attributes, think about what are the attributes or field we need to have under the bank account. So probably you need to have all of the transactions increase the bank balance and all the decreases, right, to reduce the bank balance. So the operations and attributes will be defined when you have the bank under the table formats. So we have all of the transactions and on different dates. Some of the transaction increase the bank balance and some transaction decrease the bank balance. So this is a class, the attributes, and what type of operations we can perform on the tables. So this is only for the classes. Then looking for the associations, they start to use the other example we started. Okay, we think about this is like it's like maybe you're working as a car, like a manufacturer of the cars, and you have dealerships, right? So you have the dealership for your cars, and you have the person purchase the car and may require service later from the dealers. And then the car autos licensed in each of the state. So I'm not really following what is so what type of database or the entity want to maintain this database. But we just focus on the elements, okay, we use to design the UML database. So we have 4 different classes here, or entities here. So we have person, we have a resource, right? So all the autos, the cars other resources. We also have also like a person, right? But it's kind of a dealers. You have different dealers, and then the state, okay, another entity. We can think about the attributes later. Okay, let's take a look for the associations. Okay, even it's like a review for what we talked about on Tuesday. So the associations means the relationships. So how the activities link to the classes or tables. You may not all of the classes are related to each other or associated with each other, but you need to find out the logically or naturally linked classes. For example, the car, the autos are owned by the persons, or you can say the persons own the different vehicles. But I really don't have a relationship directly between the person and the state, right? So there is really no link or no associations. Then we don't really need to build this relationship. And then we have the, you can see here the cars and the auto dealers. So they are connected by the service provided by the dealer to the cars. Or you can say the automobiles are serviced by the different dealers, right? These associations. And the person and the dealers. So you can think maybe the person come to the dealers and request their service, right? So the person is like the customer of the dealers. So not all of the classes again have the link, okay, but you need to identify all of the link you should have among the classes. So otherwise, if you miss the association or the link, you will not be able to generate the right, like, the data you needed or the reports you needed from your database. Okay, so some of the data flow miss the links. Okay, that's associations. So I write a few sentences, okay, to describe with what we just talked about. Then the multiplicities, we also started the discussion yesterday. To summarize, so we have 4 different types of multiplicities, and some other approach, they call this cardinalities, I believe. If I can spell this. So in some other data approach, they use cardinalities, okay, as another name of, but for the same meaning as the multiplicities. So means is indicate or describe between 2 classes the minimum and maximum number of times instances, so between the record of both classes. Oh, is a two-way relationship description. Okay, it's a two-way. Let me. So when you describe multiplicities, we need to indicate the instances from the perspective of each class, okay, from left to right, and then from right to left. So again, as a review, so between the person and the cars, so we say the person, so one person, okay, normally you start from a singular form. A single person or one person can own minimum zero cars or maximum unlimited, right? So many cars. So zero to many. Okay, this one. So zero to many. So minimum 0 and maximum is unlimited. And then we can go from the right to the left. One car, or one auto can be owned by one and only one person. Okay, we are assuming no joint ownership of the car. So one and only one. Okay, this one, like the second relationships. Because when we design the database, once you define the multiplicities is give the requirements, like, how many instances of data they can input into the system, and also affect the data we extract from the database. So for example, I'm saying, okay, I have the rule. I say a person can have no cars, right? So this is the rules or the multiplicities. But if you change your definition, you put one and many. So one to many. Then in that case, when you input a person, or like you input the person and their cars, you must have one car, like at least one car for each person in your record or in your database. So if you don't have a car, at least one car a person, like the system will give you the error message. Okay, you wouldn't move on. They keep probably popping up. One car is needed. So probably we all have experienced this type of situation. So when we missed a required like a field, right? So you couldn't really proceed your data input. Okay, that's like one important purpose, okay, for defining the multiplicities. And also I mentioned yesterday, if you didn't define a person can have multiple cars, so if you forgot, skip it. So when you generate the record, the database will create a query or report. They may only report the first car owned by a person. But for example, if a person owns 3 cars in the database, but if you didn't specify this maximum or like many relationship, they probably only give you the first record. So very, very critical, okay, to define the association and also the instances, okay, between the classes. Then the other the multiplicities we have here is 0 to 1 and 1 to many. Okay, so 1 to many and 0 to many are very popular than I think the first two. Oh, you see many of the like 0 to many, 1 to many relationships. And we'll continue to take a look, okay, for the other multiplicities in this data model and how to implement this into Excel or Access later after we go over the attributes. So finally, the attributes. Okay, attributes of a table. Okay, means another way. So what are the required or desired profile information we want to know for each class, or each of the entity in your database? For example, the bank account, the vehicles, the customers, sales clerk, accounts receivables, right? So each of them is a class, but what are the characteristics or the fields required in their table? And all of the required field, you can compile a data dictionary, right? So we probably all know data dictionary. So it's not your like a grammar or like a words dictionary, but it's describe for each type of data in the database. So what are their data type? So for example, is a numerical data, or for numerical is an integer, or you allow for decimal points. So is a long integer or short integer. Default value, if any. Or if you want to have some default value, you must define it. And also the constraints on the value, like what validity rules. So for example, if I put something like the weight, right? So you must, the constraints, it wouldn't be negative, right? So you need to have validation rules. You need to require it larger than 0, right? So wage or like the age. And if you're looking for a date variable, you may have day, month, and year separated in different data formats, right? So 2 digits year, 2 digits day, 2 digits month, but 4 digits for the years. Okay, that's all. We all experienced this, but think about these are really defined in the original database designs. And then very important is for all of the attributes, we need to have at least one primary key. The primary key is a unique identifier for each of your record in the table. For example, your customer ID in a customer table. As we mentioned yesterday, I don't want to have redundant records, right? So to avoid redundant records, so for example, how I can avoid put this person twice in my database. So I will assign a customer ID, unique ID to each customer. So you can do a quick check using the Excel to see do you have duplicate or redundant customer IDs, right? So that's help you to make each record unique. Also, we mentioned in our TSU system, each faculty and staff, each student, we have a unique T number, right? So this T number is like the primary key for student database or the faculty and staff database. Then foreign keys. Most people can easily understand the primary key. Then foreign key is a matching or corresponding key in other table to refer or match to the primary key in in one table. So these two tables can be linked together. But given they have the natural or logic relationship. So primary key and foreign key is normally a pair between the two tables. For example, I have my customer, if I have the customer table, then the customer ID is the primary key of the customer table, right? Then you have the sales order table. The sales order table track the sales order information. So you have a order ID, the order date, and the product ID, right? So the product ordered, and then a customer ID indicate who purchased or who placed the order. So in your sales order table, you have a column customer ID is not a primary key, but as a foreign key referring to your customer table. So in that case, you don't need to have all of the customer detailed information, such as their name, address, contact, because you contain, you maintain those information in the customer table. So I only need a ID to help me refer to the customer table. So if I need those information. Okay, so primary key and foreign key are the pair of the column to help us link different tables. But you need to be very careful when you design and define the pair of keys. You must make sure the name can be different. Actually, the field name can be different, but the data type, okay, I encountered lots of instances from our prior projects. Like I gave the database, I gave instructions for students so they can link the tables, but they tell me the system returned error message. Okay, they couldn't link the two tables. So most of the time is because of the data type. Like for example, my customer ID in my customer table is a text. So the data type is text. But in my sales order table, I use the default data type for the customer ID, which is a numeric. So even they look the same, right? So for example, I have like a 100, 200, okay, in both tables. But one column as text, the other column is as numbers, then you couldn't do the link. Okay, they must remain the same data type. So you must change one of them so the data type will match, then you can link them together. Okay, and that's something we'll practice more in chapter 6. So attributes, okay, so what are the interest? Okay, so what are our data interest? So what are the descriptions we want to describe each class or entities? But make sure you don't put too many columns, right? So you can understand that like if you have 20, I think less than, like let alone 20, if you have something more than 10 different columns, it's become complicated to manage. So to maintain or keep only the necessary columns, okay, for each table, because then, but if you have too many columns for a table, that normally means probably you need to separate another class from here, okay, rather than putting too much information for one entity in your database. Okay, separate maybe some of the columns into another table. Primary key I introduced already briefly. Okay, so the primary key normally is one column, again, one column, but sometimes it can be a combined. One column is not enough to define a unique record. So we can have a combo, like they call composite primary key. Okay, 2 or 3 columns together define a record of the class. So single primary key or combo primary keys. If you define the column as a primary key, then you need to have the data rules, and this field cannot be blank, or it must be required. So the data cannot be none. Okay, so that's something like the requirements. And you also need to be very careful when you design or define the primary key. A primary key should maintain the value relative to be permanent. To be permanent, be careful. For example, when you graduate, right, you graduate in the future from TSU, even after 30, 50 years, TSU still maintain your record by your original student ID. So once you have this student ID, they wouldn't give this T number to a new person or a new student in the future. Okay, so your information or the record will maintain stable rather than change over time. But this is not like the phone number. We know the phone number, for example, if I cancel my service with T-Mobile, and they can give your phone number to another new customer in the future, right? That's happened. So that's in most times the phone number couldn't be used as a primary key because it's something, even if it's not a transit, right? But it's something wouldn't stay forever, right? And so that's like they give you some guidance or suggestions, recommendations. Will design your own primary keys for the database. In general, unless you are the Social Security office, okay, unless you are the Social Security admin office, you don't use a social security number as primary key. Even, for example, you are a bank, right? Or like even the school, we wouldn't really use the customer or student's social security numbers. They are unique. They will be permanent, but they are not controlled by my organization, right? So, for example, if the social security admin, they change the social security number system, right? So we change the digits from right now we have 10 digits, right? So how about if they change the digits from 10 to 11 in the future? That will affect our database, right? So don't use something you out of your own control. And do not use phone numbers or people's name. Okay, people's name, we have lots of redundant. Okay, first name, last name, even the phone name. So not really unique. Should I use sequential numbers? Yeah, I think sequential numbers is better in terms of the like sales orders, purchase orders, so we can easily identify and control the gaps. Okay, so there's some like give a thorough thinking. Okay, so thoughts will think about the primary keys. And the foreign key is the pair, right? So the matching pair of the primary key in the other table. Okay, primary key and the foreign key, when we refer to a pair, we have two tables. So one table has the primary key and the other table has a foreign key, then we can link them together. So for example, we have the owner ID. Like, let me. So for the person table, I would call the person ID or the owner ID, right? Because the person, the owner, that owns the cars, I have a order ID. And that's the primary key of the person table. And then in your auto table, like that the cars as a table tracking all of the autos. So you probably have your auto ID as a primary key. And you want to identify who owns this auto, right? So rather than have all of the person's information, I only needed to have a owner ID so I can refer and link to the owner table so I can know the other information related to the owners with the owner ID. So this is a primary key and this is a foreign key. And this will help us reduce the data required by the owner in the auto table, right? So we only need this ID. And once you have a data query, so once you define the owner ID, they can help you search and return the information for that owner from your person table. Oh, we'll practice all of this in the Access project in chapter 6. Now let's see the implementation of the classes, association attributes, and these keys using the car. Okay, this one, the example we talk about. I also actually implement this in Excel. Okay, I will show the Excel I created by myself. And you also can use this, implement this directly using Access. So first, you need to map the classes to tables. Normally, each class will need a separate table to contain, to maintain, and to enter all of the information required. So for the 4 classes we identified in this process, we created 4 tables. And in Excel, I created 4 worksheets and then converted them into tables. And now you can see they define all of the multiplicities and associations, right? So 3 associations, and each table we have a name, and use a name people can, simple can also the people can easily identify what's the information in the table or it states. And each table probably you already noticed you see a like kind of a key image or like a this design. So this means your primary key, okay, with a key. And that's probably this is more like in the Access or Access database. They put a like a key icon before the primary key. And here we all have the single primary keys. And then some simple columns or attributes. The attributes, like I said, you can see this now. We can see the key icon more clearly from here. And the person, you have the name. Okay, but in the real design, normally we separate the last name, first name, street address, right? And then the cities and the zip code and the state, right? That's normally for the people information. Or for the automobiles, we have the auto ID, the manufacturer, right? The car makers and the models of the car and the model year. Okay, those are the main information related to the autos. If you like, you can have like I'm sorry, I can add a person ID. So I just use this. So I want to know who is the owner of this car. You can see this will be linked, okay, to the person's table. Then dealers, okay, I have dealer ID. Okay, so for example, I'm the car makers. Or some other, like I have different dealer ID, dealer name, and maybe the location and other information related to the dealer, or even their manager information. And then the state, state database, that's kind of standard. Okay, we may have all of the 50 states. Are you allowing, because probably we are thinking we have national, like US only, or it's not a global, like a global location information, or it's states, they're short, like abbreviations, and then the state name. And you also can think like maybe we have like for the auto ID. So later you can see that can be linked by the dealer. Okay, like you probably have another dealer ID here when we do the service. Right? So dealer ID. So a table can have more than one primary keys. So they can be linked to different tables or by the relationship. And even the auto we have can have like a state, right? So to indicate which state is licensed, or like state abbreviation, so it can be linked here. And mapping the one-to-many relationships, and especially the relationships between the person and the automobiles, and the automobiles and the state. Okay, these two pairs, one-to-many relationships. The one between the car and the dealers, okay, is unique because for the one-to-many, okay, we only need exactly the classes we have here, all the tables. So a person table, a car table, and then a state table, because it will be sufficient, adequate to implement the cardinalities for one-to-many relations, but between the auto and dealers. So looking for how they defined. We have both one-to-many from each side. So this will end up a many-to-many relationship. So a car dealer can service, right? So minimum one car and unlimited cars. And one car can be serviced by one dealer or unlimited dealers at different times. So both sides is one-to-many, so this give you a many-to-many. So that give us an additional challenge. For many-to-many relationships, we couldn't really use only the two tables on both ends, because if you later, so we'll try to input the attributes for the tables, you will see two tables won't be adequate to indicate it's messing up like the table records. So you will have redundant columns. It really create data input problems. To solve this problem, just have this idea, you will see implementations later. For this many-to-many relationships, we'll create a middle table or intermediate table. So it will have a combo primary key. And normally it will indicate the, for example, for the dealer. Let's see this. So this is the middle table, I mentioned. So it's like each of the service, a combination of each car and the dealer, did the service. So dealer and the car service, so dealer and the car serviced by this dealer. So in this intermediate table, we have two columns to indicate each unique record. So we need the auto ID and the dealer ID, because one auto can be serviced by multiple dealers, right? So if you directly do this, it's very hard to do the data inputs. You will have redundant rows and redundant columns. But by inserting this middle table, we avoid that problem, because the auto can focus on the auto information only, and the dealer can focus on the dealer specific information. The service of the dealer performed to the car, we use the middle table. So it's like a transaction record. So auto ID and the dealer service this auto each time. Like this, first record, this auto is serviced by one dealer. Then we can have another record or row, same auto ID, but a different dealer. Each row will be unique. So in that case, you can see we break down a many-to-many into two relationships and two one-to-many. The simple one-to-many relationships. And we use the one to like this infinite sign. This is the access symbol for the many. Like we can have, I also mentioned this, we sometimes they use the M, or in UML, in our book, they use the star, or in the access, they use the infinite sign to indicate the unlimited or maximum this many relationships. So finally, after you identify all of the tables, associations, attributes, and the multiplicities, so this is like you have the blueprint. This is how I want my table or database created, my blueprint. Then you can implement you in a real database tools. I did put them into the Excel worksheets. Okay, before we work on in the Access, I think we can use Excel as a transition. So let me share my Excel. I can post it in Blackboard also. We still share this. And then share. I'm looking because I'm opening to the things. So share again. Oh, here. Okay. So I'm using Excel, try to implement the tables we created, the attributes, even the relationships. So under this auto database, you can see I created 5 worksheets, then I convert each of them into a table. The worksheets is your original Excel, but for you to work on the database, I need to convert them into tables. So this is my owner, the person's table. So I designed the owner ID as my primary key. Okay, you can see I just defined my own primary key. I call like O001, like owner 002. Okay, I just give 4 records. So each record is unique. Okay, I have the different names and the address, last name, first name, address, zip code, and phone numbers. Okay, just for a quick idea. So my person's table. And then the auto table, I have the auto ID as the primary key. Then the brand, right? All the car, the manufacturer name, the model of the car, year of the car, and then a owner ID as a foreign key, so I can find out their owners. Okay. And each owner can have more than 1 cars. So both car 001 and 003 are owned by the same owner. Okay. And then the state abbreviations, so we can check where the car is licensed. So this is the auto. And then the state, very simple. I just put 4 of them. Right? And I even put like for each state, the DPS contact information. Okay, this is. And then because we have the many-to-many between car and the dealers, right? So I created a intermediate table. Okay, let's see the dealer table, then the the middle one. So the dealer table, I have the dealer ID, the name of the dealership. Okay, like this one, like typo. And then the address or location or the phone numbers, or even you can add manager or other information. So, but I didn't really have the service offered to the cars, right? Because the service, so each of them can perform service to multiple cars. And then, so I have a service table linking the dealer and the car they serviced. So like the transaction, this table is like a event, right? So event or activities. So yeah, for dealer 1, I can service 2 cars, right? So 001 and 002. So if I only look for the dealer ID, these 2 are redundant, right? Like duplicate. but this dealer served two different cars. So if I only use the dealer ID is insufficient to identify each service. So this is combined. So the combo key means these two columns together form the unique identifier for each record in this database. Because later we can see car number 2 is serviced by another dealer, right? So if you use either one of them, it won't be sufficient. You will have redundant. But if you combine them, they give you the unique information for dealer and car services. And you can probably indicate, oh, how much charge, right, for each service. And you also can identify the owner ID as a foreign key to like the owners table. And you probably ask how you define the relationships or the multiplicities. I already did something. Just a showcase. Okay, you don't need to do this because in chapter 6, we'll use the Access, not Excel, because Excel is not really it's more like a general office app. For database management, Access is more professional. Or is also a soft products, but Access is especially for database management. For Excel, the relationships are defined here. Okay, so you click on the table and you click on the data, and let me put the menu here. This is the relationship management with this icon. So if you want the tables to be linked by the definitions, you click on this to relationships. So we click on that, double click. I already built this one. Okay, so you can build other ones as needed. Okay, but if you click on this one, it's showing how I defined the association. So I have two tables. Table 2 is my I believe my auto table, and table 1 is my owner. Okay, so the auto table has my foreign key of the owner ID, and the person's table, I have the owner ID as a primary key. So these you can define. Okay, you can choose how many tables, which table you want to link. I should probably name, give a separate title for the tables. So because if you have too many tables, you may forget what the information in the table. Okay, so but here I only have 5. It's still like doable. Okay. And then you define which ID is the primary key and which ID is the foreign key. Okay, the foreign key again, the foreign key and the primary key, they must have the same data type. Okay, so they can be linked. So this is one. So let's try to work on another one. So I create a new, and this time I'm looking for the auto, the state. Okay, this is my table 5. This is this becomes my table 5 is my service. Okay, this is the last one. Then there's probably table 4 is my state. Yeah, the state abbreviation. And then my table, the auto is the second table. And also I have a state. The name can be different. Okay, but like this, I think that can work because those basically referring to, yeah, so it's created. Because even the name is different, but it contains the same data type and attributes, okay, information. So that's the second relationship. So once I build all of the relationships, I can make data queries and generate reports. So linking the different tables together rather than only extracting information from the individual tables. Okay. So let's check one kind of see. Because for the auto table, I have the state abbreviations, and in the state, I have the same thing. Okay, so they can match. So I will stop here. So I will post this Excel file under the Blackboard, okay, under chapter 5. So if you like, you can check it out. So that's briefly about chapter 5. And I probably will record another short video to talk about the business rules and some other like issues in chapter 5. So we'll be ready to implement both the process, like the activity models and also the structure models in chapter 6.